So today we have in the house an old friend, a new friend, a colleague. I think someone we will learn a lot from today. And I have the honors of introducing him so that we can get to know who is in the house today. I'd like to welcome everybody who is here today. I think the house is filling up very quickly. It will interest you to know that some of the people you know are in the house as well. I can cite someone here that if I give you his name, may make you say more than you should say or less. But please feel free. It's going to be an exciting night tonight. So today I have with me Vincent Egbe. Vincent Egbe is the managing director of GB Foods Africa in Nigeria. GB Foods is an 83-year-old Spanish culinary multinational company that owns market-leading brands like Galina, Blanca, Jumbo, Gino, and Bama. If you like to eat your bread with Bama like I do, you know the brands. Prior to his work in GB Foods, Vincent was the general manager for Kraft Heinz in West Africa and Central Africa. And before that, he spent 12 years building market leaders for Procter & Gamble across Africa. He's recognized as one of Africa's top FCMG leaders, thanks to his roles over the last 17 years in building extensive distribution networks, pioneering category innovations, and developing winning teams. His achievements have played a key role in defining new market leaders in multiple categories, channels, and countries across Africa, disrupting incumbent market leaders who have been entrenched in Africa for decades. As a result, Vincent is relied on as an expert for leading advisory groups like the Frontier Strategy Group and the Gershon Lehman Group to their clients across Africa. Vincent is a graduate of Stanford GSB Executive Lead Program and has a BSc in Geology and Mining from the University of Jos. Vincent is also a board advisor as well as a mentor for startups incubating in one of Africa's top incubators, CC Hub. Please, without much ado, I'd like you to help me celebrate and welcome my brother, my friend, co-salesman, Vincent Egbe. Please, can you help me welcome him in the comment box? Just welcome him. I see he leads us today in the conversation on leaders embody. So we've been having this conversation around leadership. We had Alex Goma do us the honors of founding this class. So we talked about leaders in vision, talked about leaders engage, talked about leaders enlist. From Alex Goma, we went to Demola Omitayo, who is like the marketing director for British American Tobacco, who spoke to us about leadership empower. And then from there, we went, to I did a series on leaders exemplify, basically like as a recap to help everybody digest everything that has been spoken about. And then yesterday we had leaders evaluate by Benga Sheson of Paradigm Initiative. And then today we have Vincent Egbe, who is a bit caught up somewhere around the chapel, but he's going to be speaking to us live today on leaders embody. So please, the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Adeolu, thank you very much. First and foremost, I never really felt qualified to speak as a leader, and to speak about the fact that leaders have to embody. But Adeolu insisted that I was qualified to discuss. So just in case you don't think I'm qualified, I agree with you. I already said this to Adeolu. But what I'd like to say is that there is a general scarcity of people that you can trust in our part of the world. Most of us, we can't even go home to our villages and trust the people who live beside us in the village. If I did a poll right now, most people on this call are not comfortable enough to even go to their villages at will, purely because they don't trust the people there. This carries on from our villages into the cities and into offices. And what we find is that you have very few people in Africa that embody that which encourages investors and people to say, hey, we're going to give, we're going to put in more of our money here, and we are going to have you take over and have more of you running the show for us. And so when we say leaders, embodying leadership, we've been seeing the charade that goes on in the country. I can tell you now, if you faint when they call you assembly, people are going to give you an oral examination. Okay. But on a serious note, embodying leadership in our part of the world is not something that is common. But what does it simply mean? It means choosing to stand out and to stand up for a set of values that says, yes, we can do it, and you can trust me. And oftentimes where we come from, for most of us here in Nigeria, if you found yourself suddenly blessed with the opportunity to steal some money or to do something, most people would just respond positively to that. But embodying leadership means that, look, when no one is looking, this company is my own. This country is my own. So embodying leadership is about being an example, not in a way that alienates other people, but in a way that gets other people to come with you and behind you to achieve objectives. This is what we consider to be embodying leadership. I would call it, collaborative envisioning. Because a lot of the time, many of us have what I would call maybe the right vision. But are we able to get other people to work with us on that journey? The true test of whether you embody leadership or not is how many people you're able to recruit behind an idea. How many people you're able to have stand with you on something. And the big challenge is being willing to truly stand with not just what you believe, but what is going to be best for the direction that you're going. And what does embodying leadership mean in different situations? Everybody can embody leadership. Everybody can be a leader. Everybody, because a leader is not necessarily the person who occupies the position. It doesn't mean that you're a leader when you're the managing director. It doesn't mean you're only a leader when you are the head of the department. You're a leader the moment you decide that you can do a lot better than whatever it is that currently exists today, and you're determined to see that better come to pass in a way that does not alienate people. And so I hope that I have shared a simple idea behind embodying leadership. For me, one of the greatest examples, I have many great examples of people who have embodied leadership. But I'd like to say that in Africa, today we really, really suffer from a scarcity, a big scarcity of people who embody leadership. Most of us assume that embodying that leadership is about getting a big title. Let me give you an example of embodying leadership. I was on a flight flying It was a Delta flight. We were flying from Lagos to Atlanta in the United States. And I went to the toilet, in the middle of the night to ease myself.
Mm.
My God, the toilet was so dirty. Everywhere was wet. Everywhere had tissue paper.
Mm.
I was deeply embarrassed as a Nigerian that, wow, this flight took off from Nigeria and look at the way this toilet is. I spent the next 3 minutes cleaning the toilet, spick and span, making sure that whatever was wet on the ground was very dry. Whatever piece of paper was on the floor was put back in there. And I'm not sharing this example. It's the first time I'm actually sharing this example. I'm not sharing this example to look good. The reason I shared this example is because if the only thing I did accomplish was make the toilet more habitable and more usable for the next person that comes in, I have embodied leadership. It's not what is seen, it's what is accomplished. Because if you believe in only what is seen, you believe in very little.
Mm.
When I was a physics student, a science student, and I used to be a proper scientist, we were told that when you look at all the spectrum of light, that the visible spectrum of light is so small compared to the total available, spectra of light, or spectra. I would like to believe it's spectra or spectrums of light. I think it's spectra of light. And so what is actually seen oftentimes is a very little part of the unseen
Mm.
when you compare. And this is exactly what compares. This is exactly what makes the difference. It's that little bit of sacrifice. That sacrifice that basically starts to enable you to set yourself apart.
Mm.
Because what happens in life that I have come to see is that when you put everything just to make sure that the 1 cup you were given becomes 5 cups or becomes 3 cups, even when nobody sees, nature rewards you for that. God rewards you for that if you believe. A lot of the time when you plant a seed under the ground, you really don't see the seed, but eventually the seed sprouts. And so this is how I have always seen. In fact, I've never seen it like embodied leadership. I've just seen it that basically you have a sense of responsibility, a sense of duty beyond what is seen, beyond what is paid for. So this for me is one of the critical aspects of embodying leadership. I'm going to tell you something now, take it to the bank. To whatever degree you multiply anything that is given to you is to the degree to which you shall rise. To whatever degree you multiply whatever is given to you is to the degree that you shall rise. If you have a job and you do what you're asked, you will stay exactly where you are. And nothing wrong with it, because let me tell you, if you have a job, you don't do what you're asked, you'll be asked to stay somewhere, but most likely outside the gate of the of the company.
Mm.
Okay? But I think you begin to embody leadership the moment you begin to look at whatever it is you have in your hand and put it in your heart. And you want to really take that thing to the next level. And what I can say for myself is that in 17 years of working, it hasn't been about occupying a position. It hasn't been about getting accolades or getting recognition. It has just been really about the fact that, okay, not on my watch.
Mm.
And if I'm the last man, and always looking at things like, look, the buck stops on my table.
Mm.
I have to do this and do this and do this and make sure that, you know what, that we can really create something that works. In fact, maybe when I was younger, it was really about, you would say you wanted to leave a legacy. But right now, for me, I mean, transparently, I don't see any legacy that I want to leave.
Mm.
It's not because leaving a legacy is bad. I mean, the only name I want to be remembered is the name of Jesus. Forgive me if you're not a Christian, not mine. But at the same time, it is really about saying, man, once you're the person that is in position, what is the best that can be done here?
Mm.
What is the best that can be done here? And you know, the interesting thing about it is that when you just have that mentality, resources, positions, whatever it is will gravitate to you.
Mm.
And suddenly, that direction, that vision that you have, those things you want to accomplish become easier. I can begin to tell you examples of how I wanted to accomplish something. I started to work on it on my own. And ultimately, the very people who wanted to accomplish the same vision found me and started to work with me on that vision.
Mm.
I had never reached out to them. I had never posted anything that maybe would make them say, okay. But ultimately, you belong to a tribe. You belong to a community. In the past, our tribes were geographic tribes. So if you were somewhere in the southwest of Nigeria, maybe you say my tribe, I'm from maybe Oyo State or Ogun State. So you're most likely Yoruba. Or you're from, somewhere in the north, or you're from somewhere in the east, you say, okay, maybe this person is Igbo. But the fact is that those are, I would call very, um, those are, okay, those are some sort of tribes, but those are like old school tribes.
Mm.
You see, modern day tribes are people who are pursuing a given direction or a set of interests.
Mm.
And what happens is that the moment you start to do things and to push for certain things and to commit to certain things, then you start to develop a tribe around you. You start to join a certain tribe. There is a tribe that links Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. That's a tribe.
Mm.
That's a tribe. There are tribes of excellence. There are tribes of people in technology. There are
Mm.
tribes of people in, in different things. The question is, so which is your tribe? I
Mm.
can tell you, pick up your phone and look at the 5 people you talk to the most. Look at the 5 people you spend time with the most. That's your tribe.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about what language that they speak. I'm saying what they do, what's their vision in life. That's your tribe. And so I would say, even though, like I said from the very beginning, that I don't consider myself yet about embodying leadership, but it's about it is about um, having that mindset that the buck stops at your table, and that, man, you have to do everything possible to make sure that whatever you accomplished here gives more people like you the opportunity to stand in the way. I have to tell you, I was saying this a few weeks ago. I was very deliberate about joining the executives of companies, very deliberate about it. It was 2009. I was working for a great company, Procter& Gamble. And I was in a meeting and I realized how they had just taken some of the worst decisions for Nigeria, the worst decisions. And I just discovered that these decisions were taken purely because most of the leadership were expatriates. Most of the decisions were taken out of Geneva or maybe Cincinnati. There was no African at the table to be able to give perspective on Africa, to have staying power to say, this, I would make sure this happens. Nobody gave the right perspective. And so guess what? The wrong things were done. That was the day I told myself, Vincent, I will do everything in my power to sit at the table where these decisions will be taken for Africa so that we can create the kind of opportunities that convert many of our current problems into, transformational ideas, into transformational opportunities, into investment grade opportunities. And I can tell you, 10 years after making that conscious decision, I now have the opportunity to sit in a place where I can look and say billions of naira should be put towards farmers to convert them from people who their total income in a year is under, let's say, 250 or 300,000 naira to people who can suddenly earn 2 million naira. Now imagine if we can scale that with over 49 million farmers in Nigeria in different areas. Imagine if our farmers if that could be scaled, where many of them who can only farm in the wet season can suddenly farm in the wet season and the dry season.
Year round.
But just purely because I told myself I want to sit on that table, everything I did was to basically enable me to be qualified to sit among people who are going to put their money into Africa. Because it's not enough just to raise up my hand and say, oh, we have a large population, we deserve investment. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to go many steps further. You have to show that you have the character to take on very difficult things. You have to show that you can be trusted. You have to show that people don't need to supervise you. That you don't need anybody to tell you what you know needs to be done. In fact, the fact that your managers should call you to say, listen, Vincent, it's enough. I think it's time. You should just relax. I think we've done enough. So it's so interesting. This has been most of my experience, most of my life, that my managers are the ones that tell me, no, it's enough. No, we've done enough. It's okay. We shouldn't do more. I'm like, no, we need to, no, Vincent, we've done, honestly, we are there. We've done enough. So, I mean, I have stories to share about.
Share.
I remember when. I mean, I grew up in Jos, and I remember being intrigued by the fact that my mom would always go to Feringada, a tomato market in Jos, and prepare tomatoes. We would convert the tomatoes to paste, and then we take them home to the village in buckets with a film of oil and distribute to the families. And I wondered, why was this? It got me interested in tomatoes. And I remember when I joined Heinz, I mean, I had the opportunity to join, the largest e-commerce company in Africa as managing director 6 years ago. But I didn't think it was the right opportunity. I eventually waited, and as you would imagine, a tomato opportunity came upon me, and I joined Heinz. And Heinz makes 33% of all the tomato seeds planted in tomato farms all over the world come from Heinz. Wow. So it's not just about tomatoes. They are the most advanced tomato company in terms of agriculture and agricultural transformation. And I joined Heinz here as country manager, and I kept pushing for us to develop a tomato development program for Nigeria. Why was this? Because I believed that if we could develop a tomato development program for Nigeria and show Nigeria how to become tomato sustainable, to the point that we not just consume, but produce. We not just produce, but we produce enough to export. I believe that this could be a sustainable source of revenue for the company. And I believe that this would transform the fortunes of Nigeria and Nigerian farmers. And then this was my desire. And when I finished my normal job, what was my core job? My core job was, Vincent, you're expected to deliver 30% growth year on year in terms of sales and deliver gross margins above 40%. This was the expectation. Nobody expected me to do any research work on tomatoes because those tomato seed projects were not even sold in Africa. They were not. But I started to push. I started to research. I spent my evenings just researching on tomatoes, studying how the great tomato transformations happened with Kofco in China, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Portugal, the tomato story of how California became the capital of tomatoes in the world, in Italy. I studied it in detail for a long time. I understood the different things that needed to be done to create the right tomato ecosystems. And I started to push and say, we can do it here. I, on my own, looked for partners. I found them. For example, a lady called Tomato Joss, Mira. I ensured that we got seeds out from California down here for her to be able to use for trials to confirm that at least we had some seeds that could work in our climate. And I worked on all this for more than 2 years. I pushed. I tried to use our 200 million a fund for developing, poor countries, nutrition in poor countries, for us to invest even $5 million in Nigeria behind this seed program. I went as far as engaging the Minister of Agriculture at the time, Egbe, to be able to commit Nigeria into a tomato development program. None of this was in my assessment. By the way, I had smashed my sales targets and the gross margin targets. We had been number one at the time in Africa and doing a great job at that. But I understood that just selling ketchup and selling mayonnaise was not the transformational thing to do. So I was pushing for these things to happen. And I wasn't pushing for them because I would get promoted. I was pushing for them because I think Nigerian farmers deserve a better life. I was pushing for them because I believe that we had we could produce something if we could connect to the technology that Heinz had. And Heinz could make money and Nigeria could make money and farmers could be developed. Long story short, I left Heinz in 2017. And a friend of mine who had seen me pushing for the tomato project across the country, introduced me to the vice president. And I wrote Nigeria's first tomato master plan and submitted to the office of the president, working on the policy, proposing things. Well, I didn't hear from them after I wrote it. I know you'd have liked to hear some good stories, but,
yeah, all the stories.
I prepared it. I sent it to them. But what's interesting is 5 months after I left Heinz, I was in South Africa with my wife. I received a call from a company and they said, hey, we'd like you to work for us as a managing director. I was like, really? Yeah. I said, well, honestly, I've made up my mind after Heinz and Procter & Gamble never to work for any company that wasn't serious about making decisions in Africa and investing in Africa in the real sector. I had made this conscious decision. So they called me and said, hey, would you like to work for us? This is what we do. And lo and behold, the company that called me, which was GB Foods, where I currently work, was preparing to be the first company to build an actually sustainable tomato ecosystem in Nigeria. They had never seen any work I had done on tomatoes in the past. They had never even had a clue that I had been studying tomatoes for such a long time. But guess what? That company found me. I was in South Africa, and that's where I currently work. And guess what? We've been the first now to build a fully integrated tomato factory and farm and the whole ecosystem in Nigeria in 60 years of Nigeria's existence, the first. Others have built some factories, but they've never built anything integrated. And so this is just like an example of one story. One story about, when, in my opinion, embodying leadership means that you are going to be inconvenienced. You're going to go above and beyond what is expected to deliver, to build the future, So people are not going to, I always use Jesus Christ as an example, that A lot of the time when you read about Jesus Christ, it said, ah, wow. And Jesus just came down and he looked at a sick man, he just touched him and said, hey, a man that was lame, and just told the guy, hey, get up. And the guy got up. And everybody wishes to have that power that Jesus had to be able to do these things, which is amazing. But what nobody ever realizes is that Jesus got up every single day, maybe before 3 o'clock in the morning, and prayed and, with his Father until daybreak. So he spent so much time working behind the scenes that by the time he came to the job, he's like pressing a button. The fire was right there. I know it's a spiritual example, but it's basically the thing that I take it from the creator way, where you spend a lot of time behind the scenes, and by the time you come out, you spend 10% of the time actually executing what people think. And then everybody says, wow, my goodness, that's amazing. I would like to do that. Would you be willing to pay the price? There is a price for the price. So, and embodying leadership is looking beyond what you see. It's looking beyond what is accepted. It's looking beyond, what you personally want, to asking yourself, how much more can I serve? How much more can I give? How much more can I enable? How much more is possible? And I have to tell you, I can go back maybe 10 appraisals or 15 appraisals in my life. It was always the same thing. Wow, Vincent, man, this vision that you've given to us is so difficult and so stretched. I mean, this is your boss telling you that the vision is too difficult and stretched. Like, calm down a little bit. Let's calm down. Let's take it easy. I can give many more stories, but I think I'll just stop here and take more questions. I hope I've been able to confuse you.
So that you ask the question. Okay, good. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for us to ask questions. Questions, inside questions are embedded the answers. I don't know if you noticed Alex Goma in the house today.
The boss of
I think so. Yeah, so questions, ladies and gentlemen. You have a question. I think it's been a very practical discussion with examples of his life, and I think I like those kind as well. When you show that, look, I'm not talking about this. I'm trying to show you what I've done, what has been done, how it works, and how you can embody leadership. So do you have a question today? Is there something that you heard that you feel, okay, can you shed a little more light on this? And how can I embody leadership in my own space? How can I, in that my own space, make sure that it's not something I'm looking at and celebrating and ticking and saying, so this is the way embodying leadership. How can I take it home? Into what I'm doing. Okay. Thanks for the accolades. I can see very practically mind-blowing, very practical and inspiring. Thank you. So we're taking a few things from it. But you need to ask questions. I tell people in an adult class, you don't learn by listening. You learn by engaging. Yeah. You learn when you say, so how does this apply to my current reality? Yeah. So I think, so you have a question and answer box there. Please use it. Ask questions. Typically, I want to lead the conversation because sometimes people don't discover their questions until somebody asks. So I'm going to take you up and ask a few questions. So we have a few more minutes to ask. So if I hear you correctly, and I think you spoke, about your passions, your vision, and the things you worked on, and how somehow, embodying leadership. You didn't really say this directly, but it looks like embodying leadership basically attracts you towards the possibility of being someone that is easy to find for the things that you have sacrificed for and you are passionate about. So, is that a direct connection I can make? Can somebody really say, if you are doing any business or you are working in any particular space, do you want to own that space so much, or get involved in that space so much, or sacrifice sufficiently for that space that if they are looking for someone who has interest in that direction, it can connect with you? Is this part of what embodying leadership is? So that's
Yes, I think that, yeah, I mean, Adeolu, thanks for that question. I would say that each and every one of us would have a problem. It might be in our workplace, it might be in our community, that we have a problem, and it's a problem that we see that irritates us. If something irritates you, it's because it's begging for your action. Start working on a solution immediately. What's interesting is that the moment you start working on a solution on any given problem, over time, resources and other people who are your tribesmen, who also either want to solve that problem or who want to capitalize on the opportunities that problem is going to create, okay, will find you. Of course, if you want to be a little bit more smart, you start to work on a solution. You start to talk about working on that solution a lot. I give an example. One guy I follow a lot on LinkedIn is a guy called Professor Ekeke. I think that's the spelling, Ekekwe. So Ekekwe. And what he does is that he works against multiple problems and he talks about the solutions. He posts, this is how we think we can solve this. For example, one of the biggest challenges we have, I tell you, we have three big challenges in Nigeria. One big challenge is, how do you enable farmers who live in villages to be able to have, yes, that's him, Professor Ndubisi Ekekwe.
okay.
So, I mean, my Igbo speakers will kill me because honestly, I'm not sure how to pronounce the word. But, but like, how do you? One of the most interesting things is that how can farmers and people who live in villages begin to create collateral or have collateral that they can use to invest behind, scaling up their farms. And oftentimes, the only collateral they have is their land. 99% of rural land in Nigeria today has not been gazetted. And so because it's not even gazetted, it has no coordinates and has no value placed on it. Hence, transferable value cannot be accrued to it, and hence it cannot be traded. And I saw a Professor Ekekwe. Working on this. I saw him go on. I saw him create a company called Zenvus, and that goes and plants coordinates for farmers in their farms and everything, and begin to assign values to these pieces of land anywhere in the country. And immediately, state government, I think Adamawa State at the time, quickly partnered with him and said, hey, help us start to solve this problem so that our farmers can begin to access credit. That's just an example. I remember when I was really bothered about the Fulani herdsmen crisis happening in the country. And I started to do a lot of research on that and started to work on solutions. And I eventually, a company found me who was making chips for the cows, so that actually you can follow the cows when they're going, because there are chips implanted in them. So you can actually tell when a cow strays from the path into a farmland and all that. And it's easy to be able to have discussions with the farm owner about what you're going to do about that. And I mean, this was only possible because I started working on that. And you know what's interesting? The person who was investing in that from Texas, who was starting a company in Nigeria, reached out to me, and that we started on that as well. I'm just giving that's just one example. So one thing is, start working on a solution. That's number one. Number two, when you start to talk about the solution and create practical steps towards solving it based on what you know and what you can do, you start to build a tribe and a community around solving that problem. And long before you know it, that community and yourself would attract more resources to address that situation. Just like for me, in the case of tomatoes, or I can tell you, in 2010, when I decided I wanted to sit on the table in Africa, I decided to become an Africa expert. I set up a Google alert on my phone, and I started to study developing Africa. What were the different aspects of Africa that needed to accelerate much faster? And I would spend 2 hours reading this. And I even set a target for myself. I said, you know what? If that I know that I'm beginning to make progress when the leading schools in the world like Harvard or Stanford or Cambridge call me to be able to speak about developing companies in Africa. And by 2013, I had my first opportunity to speak in Cambridge. 2014 was Harvard, Wharton, and Stanford, all the different institutions. And it was in one of those institutions that I first met the CEOs of the parent company of Jumia. And that's the thing about when you start to work against solutions and you start to talk about the solutions that you're working on. It's not because of what you're going to get paid. It's because you're determined that this needs to happen. And as a result, you're going to get into the circles of people who are making it happen. There is a circle of people in this world, they make it happen. It doesn't matter whether there's scarcity, it doesn't matter whether there's a crash, there's a coronavirus. Those people are always going to be running things and increasing their resources. The people who make things happen, they're always going to be increasing their resources. Things keep multiplying with them, no matter what. So, Deolu, I don't know. I answered too many things. I don't know if I even answered what you asked me.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I wanted to just broaden the conversation a bit, and I think it's doing that. So there are a few questions here. This is how best can one determine his or her tribe? Makere Aliemi.
Simple. Whatever solution, whatever direction, whatever part of the economy, whatever skill that you're hoping to, because you really belong to one tribe at any given point in time. Let's say you belong to a set of people who believe in, okay, we need to transform education in Africa. That's one part of your tribe. Maybe you also believe in, we need to create, we need to do more sports. So you're someone who runs a lot. Running, you have a running tribe. So oftentimes we belong to multiple tribes, not one tribe. Your tribe comes from what you do and what you say you do and what you like to do. So that's what chooses you. It's more like your tribe chooses you based on these things that you do, more or less. So.
Okay, so very good. Your tribe chooses you. I think that's a tweet. You don't choose your tribe chooses you. Samuel Fawed is asking, how did you handle criticism from detractors in the course of your leadership experience?
A lot of the time, criticism is an opportunity for you to understand your opportunity areas. I didn't always handle them. I didn't handle the criticism well a lot. And perhaps maybe because I didn't see my own blind spots and I didn't see the areas where I was wrong. I'm writing a book called The Hierarchy of Power. And one of the principles in that book is about the concept of the 12 yeses. Sometimes, or one of the challenges I had was that I was too determined about what needed to get done. I was too focused on that this is what was possible and this is the right vision. And I missed the aspect of empathy, and not just empathy for people who work for you, but empathy for the people that you also work for. Because one of the things about a great vision is that it's not always immediately obvious. And a great vision is only as successful as the influence behind it. And influence comes from you being able to influence people. So a lot of the criticisms I received, eventually, I would say, came to help me later, whereby I discovered that for people to support my ideas, I have learned that it's critical that I support people's ideas. A lot of the time, we think because what we're doing is right,
Yeah.
that we should be supported. But then we don't go out of our way to support other people's ideas. And this is the challenge in the workplace. I had a manager. He was general manager at the time when I was in Procter & Gamble. My last general manager, his name was George. And I honestly didn't think he was smart. You know, I thought he did a lot of things wrong, and I thought he made wrong choices on categories. And probably I might have been right. I thought he made the wrong decisions on distributors. And I thought I was right. And honestly, perhaps I was right. But what is your role? Your role is to make sure that if someone is your leader, your first role is to support and love that person. Your first role is not to deliver your vision. Your first role is to support and love that person. And one person I learned that from is actually Jesus. You know, the reason he chose St. Peter to be his successor was because apostles that were guys. That's actually the guy that loved him the most. I mean, when we read the Bible and we read about the fact that St. Peter betrayed Jesus 3 times, you miss the point in that story. Peter was the only person among all the apostles who had the guts to go as far as being in the courtyard of the chief priest. The others had disappeared long ago. They had run away. So, you know, this was one of the things about the criticism, is that I would say it's one of the things that now I actively look forward to receiving. Because I now start to look and see, okay, so what am I not seeing? How much empathy? You have to give 3 parts of your time and energy to people and 1 part to your idea. Because honestly, it is to the degree that you invest in people, both up and down, that you're going to be able to assemble the support that you need to take your idea from being a seed to becoming a forest.
Okay. Thank you very much. So yeah, very good. So you have to learn how to support people, love and support your leader, have empathy and handle criticisms better. Good. Justin Gongul is asking, can Vincent please talk a bit more about why he left his former employer for GB Foods? Valuable assets like him will not be let go of easily.
No. One of the things you have to understand in the run of play is that ultimately you would always gravitate towards where you belong. The Heinz company was not prepared to invest in Africa and in Nigeria. That's just the summary of the truth. They were not ready to invest. They wanted to continue to import for a country that was now intent on food security. So they didn't have a bright future. So, and for them, Africa could not yield the margins that they needed because they were also not willing to invest in factories. So what ended up happening was that a consumer paid more for duties and tariffs than for the actual product itself. And so they didn't have a long-term sustainable future. So wonderful company. I still deal with them today. I mean, I use their seeds. They make some of the best seeds in the world. So, and a company never loses you. I always consider myself an ambassador of Procter & Gamble. I'm forever thankful. If P&G ever called me and said, you know, you need to return our salary for the 12 years you worked for us, I would gladly pay Procter & Gamble that money because that was the best university I attended. I forever consider myself an advocate. I always reach out to leaders in Procter & Gamble, both locally and internationally, to be able to share what I see happening in the industry and give my little 2 cents about what I can see. I also see myself as an advocate for Kraft Heinz. I still engage. Remember, I'm still buying their seeds today. Their seeds are playing a critical role in my tomato projects. So companies never really lose you. You know, they never really, really do lose you because it's not just when you're working in a company that you're contributing. You know, sometimes the work you do outside the company highlights how great that company can be or how that company is and attracts more people to be able to work there. So I hope it answers your question.
Very good. So Ken Deola is asking, I'm a tomatoes person. I wish to start a business that packages cooked bottled tomatoes to homes. Can you guide me?
Tomato bottles.
I don't know. I think the person needs guidance
Well,
about understanding how tomato works as well.
well, I would say that the first place for you to start is to compare the economics of the product you make to the
So
if
what's
what you're making, generally in tomato products, it could be that are you making a tomato sauce like a ketchup, or are you making a tomato ingredient like a paste? Because one is hot break technology, one is cold break technology, more or less. And that determines what the advice I'd give to you. I would tell you, focus on the sauce area. No company yet in Nigeria is doing a great tomato sauce, tomato-based sauce, like a pepper and tomato sauce combined, that someone can just heat a little bit and use ready to eat and dip stuff inside. So this could be one area that you could focus on if you want to bring that to life. You could start small, make your own packaged ready stew, and rather than get it onto a shelf, focus on getting it direct to consumers and cut out the middleman. You've already cut out 20 points of margin, and you start to get to consumers leveraging e-commerce, social media, and test the waters, test the waters. And when you finally have a product that people love and people can describe with a smile in their eyes, not just on their lips, then you can now start to look for how you can scale to get on shelves and to reach more consumers who might not be on the internet.
Okay, thank you for that. There are a few more questions. We're a little past the wrong way, but we'll be done in a few minutes. If you would oblige for the next 3 questions, we'll take 3 more questions and that'll be it. So I'll start with the one that is shortest. Lano says, how do you build synergy? Nigerians, due to lack of trust for one another, tend to go solo. So how do you synergize in that environment?
I completely agree. The first thing is that you need to be willing to lose. One person needs to be willing to lose. When people see that you're willing to give up your share of the loot for everybody to go in a given direction, when people see that you're willing to accept feedback, when people see that you are someone who's ready to make sacrifices, people will slowly trust you. I agree with you. The average Nigerian, we prefer to build a hut than to come together to build a skyscraper. That's why the biggest buildings you see in our communities are churches and mosques, because those are the only things we come together on. We don't come together in terms of business. But that's because nobody wants to be the fool. Everybody wants to be smart. You have to be willing to be the fool. You have to be willing to be the one that loses. And ultimately, when people see you in that regard, people will say, hey, I'm willing to trust you, Laolu. I'm willing to trust Laolu because this is Laolu. He gave up his 1 million. That guy walked out his 1 million. Laolu did not fight the guy. Laolu said the vision is more important. That's it, man. It's consistently sticking to those values and letting people know where you're going to stand. It's very tough, but that's it, man. I agree, Abibat. You pay the price.
Yeah, I think that resonates very deeply with something someone was telling me recently as well. It's trying to build, there's a business space in Nigeria in the poultry agric sector that looks like will be the future. But, one person can't do it alone. They need to come together. Everybody's used to doing solo. And I think that's apt. You want to really play in that space, somebody must be willing to be the fall guy to say, look, if your challenge is that I may have ownership, why don't you take ownership? If your challenge is that I may be the controlling person, why don't you control? We just need to get this done. Yeah. So rather be the small guy on the big table than be the, that everybody's struggling to be the big guy, and then there's no guy. Okay, very good.
Exactly.
So someone is asking, embody leadership. Does it mean leading people by connecting their emotions to even want to go beyond given targets? Person is trying to understand, is this what you're defining? He's trying to grapple with a definition. I don't know.
I think that if you ask me about embodying leadership, it's like, indeed, I agree with you that it's about going beyond targets. It's about gravitating away from targets to building visions and systems in anything that you're doing. You know, I always used to tell my people back in the day that there are two types of salespeople, two types of staff. The staff who do exactly what you tell them, fantastic. And the people that come back to you and tell you how much more everybody else can also do. Who eventually are you going to promote? The person that told you the second thing. You can see them, they're delivering their own. But they're even coming back to you to show you, look, oh, you gave me this target of 10 million. But now I have done 11 million and counting. I have to give an example of somebody who was my colleague at Procter & Gamble. He works in Reki Benkiza. Now, just a quick example. His name is Udoka. Every single person I knew that was a banker was always afraid in banking of marketing. But when Udoka was a youth cop and went for his interview at UBA, he said to the guys, allow me to interview. And they told Udoka, no, you're not qualified to interview. Okay, you're still a youth copper. He said, guess what? The bank loses money for every single day I don't work for you guys. Regional director was like, what? What do you mean? They interviewed him. They said, okay, come and work. Udoka was the only person who received 2 promotions in 18 months and took the cabal size is the balance sheet of a bank branch from less than 200 million to over 3 billion. What did Udoka do differently? Udoka came and understood this is how to market. But what did he do? He was the one person that went and studied every single product that UBA had on his books. Product for importation, product for processing, product for manufacturing, product for agriculture. He studied all the products. Then he started to study businesses and see what are the problems these businesses are facing and what group of products can I put together into a single product that I would use to market to this person, to tell this person how I will solve their problems. Very simple. He would walk up to you and say, you don't need to open an account with me. Here's where your business is. This is where you can be. These are the 3 things that are missing I can do for you. This is how we can process your Form M. We can then tie it to this credit financing. This is how this can happen and that can happen. Really true? Yes. I said, try it one time. 3 billion. Udoka was the first banker I met that was always relaxed. Very relaxed. He was balling as a marketer. I was like, wow. And he basically rewrote the rules. So that's an example.
Okay, very interesting. There's this concept we used to share back in the days that what binds us together is our mutual quest for success. So I'm a successful person. I'm going to be successful. Your company is going to be successful. What binds us together is I want to be successful, you want to be successful. Success means different things to us, but what binds us together is that we want to be successful. So, once I'm in that pathway, it's not about deliverables, it's beyond deliverables. So deliverables will be a byproduct of that. So I think that's very apt as well. I think the final question we have today is from Ima. He's asked 3 questions in one. And he says, 1, sir, you are able to engage your management and they listen. How are you able to get the attention of leadership of your organization? I'm a consistent top performer, but not getting attention of my organization's leadership to invest in Africa. What else can I do? In an organization where you are crowded by managers, how do you become visible without ruffling feathers?
Okay, Emmanuel, you could be a top performer, but the question is, how do you rub off on people? And how much empathy do you show? One of the challenges of top performers has always been, is what I observe as empathy. Even for me, I did not show enough empathy. In fact, I'm learning to show more empathy even now. The first thing is that you really need to invest. Those leaders, the leadership of the company, ask yourself the question, what are the top 3 problems that keep them up at night? If you know, then begin to create solutions for those problems. And eventually begin to share those solutions with them and say, these are the solutions. I want to work. I know this was keeping you up at night. Here are my ideas. Of course, before you can sit at the table of those who present ideas, you have to have passed through the door of people who have exceeded targets. To sit at the table of ideas, you have to pass through the door of people who have exceeded targets. And one of the critical things there to sit at that table is empathy and support for ideas that are not your own. And I think that that's what sets you apart. And you know what? You will have to ruffle feathers, but ruffle feathers positively. You need to become that guy that people go to say, hey, Emmanuel is going to support me. Emmanuel is a very smart guy, but you know what? He really supports me. So it's one thing to deliver for yourself, but it's another thing for people to say, man, Emmanuel delivers for me. And it takes time. It may be this company never recognizes you. And that's probably because that's not where you're meant to be eventually. But then ultimately you get there. Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much, Vincent. It's interesting that you thought it was a different day. I think
What?
I said it's interesting that you thought it was a different day. I think you did very well considering that, you know.
Adeolu, you won't believe this. You won't believe this, Adeolu. I had set out tomorrow evening to prepare for this discussion for Thursday. I had put it in my Thursday calendar. I don't know how I didn't read it was Tuesday, man. I had fixed tomorrow. So when you called me, I was just going into the chapel. I'm in the church. I was just going into the chapel. I said, you know what? I needed to spend like 1 hour praying and then come back. And I was like, seeing Adeolu calling me 3 times, I sent you a message saying, I'll call you in an hour's time.
An hour's time will be done. Awesome.
So sorry, I didn't get to prepare my notes for this.
No
I'm
problem.
really sorry.
We'll bring you back with your notes. We like what we've written to today. It's immortalized, we've recorded it, but we'll take you back with your notes sometime in the future. Thank you very much, Vincent. I don't know if you have a parting shot for the people tonight. Everybody's excited. You know, it was practical, it was real. Any closing shots?
Yes. Let me just give you guys this closing shot. Many of us look at a rising economy called China, who now produces 40% of all the world's goods. And each of us wonder, how did such a great economy emerge? I'd like you to study one man, Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping, he was rejected by the strongest man in China of the last 150, 200 years, called Mao. Chairman Mao did not appreciate Deng Xiaoping. He thought he was a capitalist and he banished him to the countryside. But this is the thing about the power of vision. And when you truly love what you want to do in such a way that you're willing to sacrifice everything, you know, like Colin Kaepernick. And when Chairman Mao died, this is a guy that was banished to the countryside. People came to him and slowly started to build the vision for the new China. And I would say to everyone to read and see whatever Deng Xiaoping was able to accomplish in a very complex place like China, such a large place like China. You do not face any of those complexities here. You don't. If he could do it and create something that set the country on a course to lift 800 million people out of poverty in a place where he was rejected and cast away by the leaders of the leaders of the country. The name is Deng Xiaoping. Then honestly, there's no reason why you can't do it. I always tell people, I remember Peter Obi, I worked in Anambra State. And I can tell you, I worked in Anambra State in 2004. In 2018, I drove around Anambra State in the middle of the night, 10 p.m. I was going from one town to another town. There were street lights even in the village roads. In the middle of the night, they were not off. I didn't talk about the city. I said there were street lights put in place by the guy. The state had gone from one of the backward states in terms of education to producing more winners of awards than Lagos State. Okay? And this is the most chaotic state that had Onitsha. Onitsha was the most dirty city in the world. And made Onitsha very organized, you know? So whatever scale of challenge, the question is, what is the scale of the fight inside you and the love that you have for what you want to accomplish? And I think that that's basically going to determine who wins, you or the challenge.
Thank you very much, Vincent Egbe. I think that was beautiful tonight. Okay, good, great. So it's the size of the fight in the dog, not the size of the dog in the fight. So look at what you're passionate about, look at how big it is, and know that if China did it, we will do it as well. I think it's not just patriotism. I think it's pragmatic to realize that if we get our acts together and we address these issues of leadership at every rung of the ladder, it is from the crowd that the leaders or the positional leaders will arise. So if you're fixing it today and you're understanding very clearly that you can start from where you are and gradually your tribe will gather around you to make things happen, then you're definitely on course and on the pathway to making significant things happen. Thank you very much, Vincent Egbe. Bucci Da Vinci.
Adeolu, thanks a lot, man. Thanks so much.
So look forward to catching up with you again.
Ciao, Same ciao. Here, man. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Okay, everyone. Everyone is saying thank you as